Hey Youtubians, it's Tony here from We Try Anything. The channel likes try anything, so you don't have to. What we're going to take a look at today is something that was released, which was released November of 2020, and yeah, what a year that was. Obviously, this release was it was released to coincide with the new generation of Xbox One Series S and Series X consoles, and these were sold separately to them if you wanted to kind of upgrade your Xbox gaming experience. And what we're going to have a look at today is the Xbox Series controller. The one we've got here that we're going to have a look at is we've got the shock blue version, and obviously you can get it in black and you can get it in white as well. What we're going to take a look at today, we're going to have a look at what it's like design wise and stuff like that. We're going to take a look at the features of the new controller. We're going to compare it to some of the older controllers, because we do have the Generation 1 and the Generation 2 controllers, with the first one without the Bluetooth that came with the Xbox One. We're also going to take this, the second generation has the addition of Bluetooth, and obviously it's a slightly more updated one, with this one being what I would call Generation 3. And also I'm just going to talk about what it's like really, and if it's been any good, because I've had it for about just about over 2 months, and I'll just talk about what I think about the actual Xbox controller. And what we'll do, we can also do a side-by-side comparison, because I do have a Gen 1, Gen 2, and obviously I do have this controller to compare to. What I'm going to do first is, as I say, I'm going to unbox it, and then you can have a look at what you get in there. So over to the table. So just opening the box, it's quite a nice, well packaged box, and obviously as soon as you open the box, it's not one of these pull off affairs or you've got to pull out or anything like that. It is a nice open, easily open box going on here. And just to show you, you know, you take the controller out, which is the nice shock blue one, which is it's got a very nice colour to it, but we'll talk about the actual controller in a minute. You do get the 2 batteries. Now obviously I've opened these and started using them, so hence they do actually come in a packet. And obviously if you pull this what holds the actual Xbox Series controller out, you do get instructions, obviously the warranty and the agreements with how to look after your Xbox Series controller, and then you also get a Xbox Game Pass. Now this Xbox Game Pass is valid for 14 days. It's a nice little touch really, just so you know, you can download some games and just use the Xbox Series controller straight away with the games. And it is the ultimate version, which I believe allows you to use it on a PC as well as the Xbox Series consoles, and obviously the Xbox One series of consoles as well, which is a really, again, as I say, it's a really nice touch. It's a couple of weeks gameplay, and obviously if you got this at Christmas and you haven't got Xbox Game Pass, you've only got Live, then you know it's a nice little touch, so you can just download some games like Doom Eternal and stuff like that. So I do like what they've done there, which is really, it's a nice little touch. But if I just move all this paraphernalia out of the way, and what I'll do then is I'll just show you actually the batteries and stuff like that, how they go in. So speedily move that out the way. Just opening just having a look around the Xbox Series controller first. As you can see, I mean, obviously the first thing you will note is when you do you know, get the actual Xbox Series controller out of the actual box, you will notice straight away is its textured finish on the back, and it is something that you can't help but notice. And especially if you've got a Gen 1 and the Gen 2 controller that I've got, it is a nice little touch here, and it does aid to the grip of the controller. You can feel your fingers just, you know, they're not sliding around as much. Not that I'd ever found it with the older ones, but in comparison, you know, at first my hands did hurt for some reason, but I would imagine that's because they had more grip, and they allowed the actual Xbox Series controller to be, you know, nicely held really. And if you compare it to like the Gen 2, you know, obviously with that being a lot smoother than the what I would note as a Gen 3, you know, it's a nice little touch. Now talking at the back, now as you can see here, this is where the battery compartment is. And the first thing to note on these is that this is just very slightly smaller than the other one that you get, which then based on the older ones. I'm not sure why they did do that design change, but if you have like the old Venom chargers and stuff like that, you may note that they don't fit as well as obviously a newer version of the Venom chargers or anything like that. So please bear that in mind when if you are buying one of these. So they do go in easily. I mean, as I say, I have used this before, so it's very easy to do. Obviously that goes in like thus. and as does that. And that's it. And there you go. So as easy as that. And then pop that back on, and then you're off. But what I'll do is I'll just quickly show you putting a Gen 2 controller, and you can just see how different the actual fitting is. So I'll just take it off of here, just to give you an idea. I'll just pop it on there, obviously with the batteries in. And it just doesn't fit. As I say, I mean, obviously there must be the way they have changed the design slightly. So, you know, that just to illustrate that these have changed very slightly. I mean, they're not changed in any kind of shape, or, you know, like the actual overall sizing of the thing hasn't changed. But if you do look at the sizes, the actual sizes in comparison of the two, they haven't changed as much in terms of how they look and all that. They are the same. So there is a very slight design change, but I'll compare and contrast the two later. So just looking around the actual Xbox Series controller, what you do get is the usual accessories area here to put what was. I'm not sure if they're going to release them, but you know, in the older versions of the unit, you could put obviously a keyboard and stuff like that. You do get the same 3.5mm jack that you did get on the Series 2. The actual Gen 2 controller, which was the Bluetooth version. And also, you know, they kept with that. And on the front, obviously, you've got that area. So you've got that button there, which is the allows you to pair with your Xbox. You just, obviously, when you turn it on, you just, and that light's flashing, looking for something, you just press that. And then you press the same button on your Xbox One, and it will pair. Interestingly, I do use this with the original Xbox One, and that is the black one, which is the 500 gig, and it works perfectly. I've only had a few problems from the off, which was it kept unlinking, or it kept saying that the controller had unlinked from the actual Xbox, and that was just due to the way that I put the batteries in, and you know, it's more kind of user error than anything else. But you know, talking about the rest of the actual Xbox Series controller, I mean, obviously the thumbsticks are still there. They were a little bit stiff at first, but they're fine now. You know, obviously they will become loose as time goes by. But I haven't experienced any controller drift or anything like that as of now. And in terms of looking at the rest of obviously you've got the usual buttons here, and you have got the addition of what's known as the share button. Now, the share button is something I don't use. I mean, I've never really used it anything. I don't really share any kind of wins or gains that I've got on the Xbox Series, on my Xbox account. And I mean, it might appeal to some people who are more gamer focused, gamer orientated, that like to kind of upload their wins and what kind of achievements that they've managed to get to their fan base and stuff. But for me, just, you know, your general Joe who likes just playing like a couple of hours a night, or say, you know, like a couple of hours over the weekend, you know, it's just something I found that I didn't use. And if anything, what I did notice was that, to me, I did at first start, sorry about the colouring, I did notice that the actual share big button, it just got in the way, really. So again, you know, each to their own, really. And obviously you may find it probably more suitable to what you use it for, but for me, I didn't. Mentioning the actual textured buttons, you also get textured triggers as well, which is a nice feature as well. I mean, obviously, I didn't really find ever that my fingers would slip off and they weren't sweaty enough for that to happen. But for these, you know, they are nice. You can feel the texture straight away, and it's a nice kind of grippy platform to be using for firing and stuff like that in any games. But comparing the two, I mean, if you compare the two, as I said, with the controllers, I mean, obviously that's a lot more, that's a lot more, like glossier and stuff like that. So, but as I say, I never really had any issues with the with the normal grips that were for the actual triggers, but they were fine. The other things of note to compare, obviously on this new controller you've got USB-C as opposed to micro USB, which was on the older ones, which I think is a good little touch, really. I mean, obviously it means you've got to get a cable and stuff like that, but if you're using them for charging and stuff like that, I always found micro USB a very kind of fragile cable connector to use. It always got bent if you actually move too quick or anything like that. So USB-C is a lot more stronger, I find, and it works just as well. Just kind of, now we've got the other controller here for comparison. I mean, obviously this is more like more of a cyan colour to what is the shock blue version. Obviously you will note, and I'll just zoom in a little bit here. Obviously you will note the subtle differences that the actual D-pad has now. The D-pad is more circular in its kind of design, as opposed to what was the original, or sorry, Gen 1 and Gen 2 versions, which this being the Bluetooth one, which can be distinguished by this here. Obviously I'll just quickly show you the Gen 1 that I've got, where this is non-Bluetooth, which is the original one, where you've got that, as opposed to this here, which is an all-in-one. This is more separate really. So I'll just quickly describe the difference. But as you can see here, the main differences are with the D-pad. D-pad's a lot more clickier than the other one. I mean, there is some click, there is some element of click to that, but it's not as clicky. And obviously, what I find with the circular D-pad, if you want kind of diagonal movements here, they're a lot easier to accomplish than they are on here. So it maybe for retro gaming, you know, that's an added plus. The actual buttons here, you know, just to try and get it in camera view. Same level of clickiness really. There's no real discernible difference, or there's no added micro switches or anything like that. And as I say, with the actual thumbsticks, they were a little bit stiff on, you know, opening the Xbox controller and using it. But they're fine now. I mean, obviously they're a lot looser than they were, because obviously getting some gameplay. I mean, nowhere near as loose as that, because I've had to take the part out of there because it was drifting like mad. But you know, the thing what I find with the actual new Xbox Series controller is that it is more evolution than revolution, and I do mention that again later on in the video. And you will spot that as you kind of look at the Gen 1 controller, which is the original one that I got with the Xbox. There's no real change, and I do find that okay, it won't, if you've got, say, like an Xbox Series X or Series S console, then you may feel, well, that's, you know, you've a bit hard change compared to the PS5, where it's a bit more next gen, where you've got the, you know, the more feedback on the actual triggers and stuff like that. But what I find with having like when you compare the two controllers here, the Gen 1 to the Gen 3, you'll find that it's more the better the devil you know, where straight away you're more familiar with this design. There's no real changes, so you don't feel any kind of anything you've got to learn differently. The position of the buttons are the same, except with the addition of this here. And the only difference I did find, and it may be a feature setting that I haven't looked at on my Xbox, was when I do plug in the headphones here, it sounds a bit more kind of goldfish bowl, or that you are, you know, it sounds more not as rounded as you did find on, say, what would be the Gen 2 here. And I used to plug it into my monitor, which you can see is sitting next to me whenever I present these videos from the start or the end. And the sound sounds better when it comes through the monitor, 3.5mm headphone jack, than it does through here. But that may be a setting on the Xbox that I've got to kind of mess about with and try and get better, really. So in terms of any discernible difference, as I say, it is more evolution than revolution. But you know, on using this actual Xbox Series controller after the past couple of months, as I said, I've had no real problem. I've found it's really nice to use. The textured element here is brilliant. And as I say, it is kind of, you kind of forget you're using it again, because it is something you just grab and go, really. In terms of syncing to the actual Xbox One that I've got, no problem at all, other than, you know, a bit of user error with the batteries, but synced up straight away. It did have a thing that stood out, which was it had to update, which I found a bit weird. I've never had a controller update, really. I always thought these were kind of not smart devices. I always thought they were kind of just a accessory to using the Xbox, which had all the, you know, obviously the tech built into it. But obviously, you know, nowadays everything needs an update, really. So, you know, there was an update for the Xbox to use this controller with it, and then obviously once you were off, it did work. But as I say, after the past couple of months of use, I haven't had any problems. The battery's still the original batteries, and as I say, I do tend to use it during Christmas. I was using it 2 hours in the evening just to play Warzone and stuff like that. And obviously, you know, I'm still on the original batteries, and they're about, what, 3/4 the way. I've still got about 3/4 the amount of power left. For games like Warzone and stuff like that, you know, I haven't found any kind of difference to the level of reaction and stuff like that, and it is a good option. So just to kind of conclude on what I've already discussed and what I've gone through around the Astral Control and what have you, it is sturdy, it's nice. It is a kind of it's well, you know, it's well worth upgrading to. But the only thing I would say is that if you do have kind of a second generation console, second generation Xbox One controller, which is like the blue one that I've shown in the unboxing and obviously the comparisons and what I've spoke to, you know, you do already have that kind of 3.5mm jack there, and obviously you got your accessory detail stuff going on there. The only obviously, as I say, the only things you'll miss out on is it's micro USB as opposed to USB-C. What's going on there? And you know, I mean, if I had the Xbox 2, if my Xbox second generation controller wasn't as, you know, it didn't have the controller drift as that one does, and I have kind of discussed that in a previous video, then I wouldn't really upgrade to it. Because I mean, while these are nice, and don't get me wrong, it's nice to have the clicky buttons there, and you know, it's nice and new, and with the textured, obviously the textured triggers there, and you know, the nice textured grip underneath. I wouldn't spend the money really. I mean, unless you were going to get an Xbox Series console, the XS or the X, then obviously you will get that with it. But if you're already happy with what you got, then, well, you know, if you want to upgrade it, then, you know, don't let me stop you. But if it's something like you're thinking, well, is it going to be any better than the other one? It's on a very minor scale. I mean, obviously, as the title says, it is more evolution than revolution. And, you know, save your money towards what you would spend on the £54 on this, to something like a newer console if you've already got the Xbox One. The only saving, I mean, obviously the saving grace with this is that once I do upgrade to an X, you know, this will work no problem with it, and it does work no problem with the actual original Xbox One I have got, and it, you know, it kind of it syncs to it no problem. So it's been great. But as I said, you know, if it wasn't for the other controller having that, you know, that joystick drift and stuff like that, I probably wouldn't have upgraded really. But other than that, if it is something you are interested in, then you know, it's well worth purchasing. So we hope you like the video. If you like the video, then please give it a like. If you want to see more video from the We Try Anything channel, then please subscribe on the link below. You know, all subscriptions help the channel grow bigger. And thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next video. Goodbye.